sprockets need to be changed. I assume that's what they mean. Sounds like an instructional video. Lila, time to get to work. So, what do we need to change the sprockets and the chain? Well, tools. To get the axle off, breaker, that's all what we need. My favorite little socket set to get all the nuts and bolts off in hard to reach places. Some insulated gloves, because it's currently 4 degrees outside. Bike marine grease, again for the axle. Loctite for the front sprocket nut. Paraffin to get rid of all the gunk that is accumulated all around there. As well as a brush to move it around. Brake and parts cleaner to forcibly remove it. Cup of coffee. And chain cut and rivet tool or angle grinder if you're confident. You only need this if you don't have a master pin set with one of those clips for the new chain. This one is an endless chain, so we need that. Front sprocket will be staying with the 17. I bought this when the dealer had a sale on, so got it cheaper. Notice the rubber, this helps with the noise as well as it's easy on the chain. There is a school of thought that says this is more unsprung mass, which will... Gentlemen, do what the hell you like, okay? And 45 tooth sprocket instead of the 42. Let's see how quickly I can kill myself with wheelie mode. A DID chain, 525 VX. Remember, gentlemen, just because it's a 525 doesn't mean it's for your bike. Over a liter in capacity in the engine, that's a lot of torque, that's a lot of power, so don't skimp on this, right? Go for something higher grade rather than lower. Trust me, you do not want a chain breaking apart at speed. That's one surefire way of seeing your relatives, if you believe in that sort of thing. And a new chain guide or slider. Why do we need to change this? Because according to the manual, you're supposed to see a lot more of the chain here. If you don't see it, as I'll show you now, that means this thing is worn. But generally, the dealer says, after 30,000 kilometers, change all of it. Even though mine don't look like they need changing. Oh, and very important, you always need rags. This is a dirty job, so in terms of rags, you can use old underwear, because they've already got the brake stains on it. Old socks are very good. Or, you know, an old shirt that you will never ever wear again because you are completely ashamed of what it represents and stands for. Ihr habt Scheiße gebaut! Yeah. Right, and the best time is when it comes back from service, it's all nice and clean. Some slave has already cleaned everything, so you're not going to get too dirty. Drawback of going to a dealer, they overfill your engine as well. I have to correct that. Right, so where are we going to start? We're going to start getting this cover off, inspecting that. This is the chain guide I mentioned. According to the manual, the chain, you're supposed to see the linkages here still. Not the case, so let's change that. Sprocket. Look, okay, it's worn, but the chain... I'm having difficulty pulling it off. So, okay, you know what? Let's go for it. Right, let's begin. Oh wait, did I say clean? Nope. Alright, front sprocket, yeah, definitely should be changed. If nothing else, to get rid of this rat's nest. There's the chain slider. Now, bearing in mind, if you don't install this correctly, well, I've seen it in some KTM models, that the sprocket will actually eat into the swing arm assembly in there. Again, design fault. Fuck it. Right. See that? Now, to get that off, we need to hammer this thing flat. And then we gotta break that nut. To fasten it, the manual says you need 100 Newton meters. So, this is not gonna be easy to do. Now, there are several school of thoughts here. You can put the bike in gear and then, well, wrench on it to get that loose. Personally, I don't believe in that. That's a bad idea because bikes in gear, you are fighting the engine internals and you are causing unnecessary wear and stress. I don't mean to stress you. This will be painless for you. The easier way is you take it off the center stand, put the back wheel on the floor, sit on the back brake, and then while sitting on it with the breaker bar, pull upwards. I've even seen a video where the guy puts, a socket or a spanner here, and then puts the engine in gear and with the engine's force and torque twists it off. Look, it's the same reason you shouldn't oil and clean your chain with the bike in gear and running. You're asking for trouble. Here we go, as flat as a choir boy on the altar at midnight mass. Right, now to break this loose, you can use normal socket, breaker bar, etc. If, however, you've got a girlfriend or you are getting sex regularly, so your muscle or arm strength is lacking again, you can use an extension bar. Nut size is the same as the axle, 32mm. Right, so put that on, put the bike on the ground, step on the rear brake, lift upwards. If you need a breaker bar, I've got one here. I should be able to break this off quite easily. This nut wasn't even torqued correctly. It was loose. Look at this. I'm not even using any force, just there you go, turning. If I get my hands on the quality control supervisor in the internment camp, I'm going to kick him in the ass. Okay, there we go. We're going to wash both of these in paraffin. This one is still usable, but if you want to straighten it, just put it in a vise to straighten all of this. Cheap enough part. And they only use one side. Usually you do one side or two sides for extra safety. That doesn't look too bad. Alright, next up we got to break the chain so we can get it off, pull that out, put a new one on, put the old chain back, make sure it's over the old sprocket, tighten it, and then we deal with the back section. Did I say internment camp? Sorry, not very German of me. Okay, next, the DID Mighty tool. Let's break this chain. Yeah, that's relatively straightforward. If only they had another language I could understand. Oh God, the language of the islands. Brexit language. I never will understand it. Fuck it, I'll try it this way. Now as you can see, this is an OEM endless, so all of these things are raised. That makes it extremely difficult to balance this and to push out the pin using this advanced tool. But because I give a shit about you, my viewers, I am going to do it with that tool if it kills me. Because I believe in giving you quality viewership. And there we go. Extremely easy tool to use.
Franz, how can we make his life even more difficult? I know. How about when he needs to take the sprocket out, he needs to also remove this, the clutch sleeve. Oh, that is brilliant. Arschloch.
Right, chain slider comparison. Old versus new. You can see where the chain is actually dug into it and worn away the plastic. So this is after 25,000 kilometers. May have not been necessary. I'm guessing this would have still lasted at least till 35, 40,000. But hey, while we're in here.
Okay, bad joke. We're going to put some copper slip on here, just for shits and giggles. We're going to put the sprocket on, and then we're going to run the old chain over it, tighten it according to fucking specifications, comrade, and then we continue.
Okay, I'm going to put the clutch cylinder back. Gentlemen, if you're doing this, the longer bolt is at the bottom.
O-rings, always make sure they greased up a little. In here is a little steel ball. It may rust, so squirt a little bit of brake cleaner in there and then add some grease. Just a little bit, you don't want to overdo it. Also, if there's oil around this tower or cylinder, whatever you call it, don't worry about it. It's normal. There's no leak yet. I can't offer you any advice with the chain slider. It's a pain to get out, it's a pain to get in. So go like this, push this one in first, and then jiggle this thing around until it slides in there. Reuse this bolt. There's no new one. There's one here, one here. You get new ones with the kit. Strangely enough, these don't fit though. These are actually thicker. Old chain is on, secured on the back sprocket. So now we put the nut on, Loctite's been applied, 100 Newton meters of torque, and then we bend this upwards again. Next up, take the rear wheel off, reset all of these to 0, take the sprocket off, measure the chain. Right, the old sprocket and the new one. It fits. New one is a bit larger, so what we will have to do, before we measure, or basically before we cut the chain, we're going to test fit it on it and see if we have to leave on an extra link, just to make sure. We're going to take this thing off now. Here we go. Now, 50 Newton meters of torque to fasten again, and we go in a star configuration. Usually I go 20 Newton meters, then 40, and then the final, just to make sure everything is fits and nothing is warped. Also, Loctite everything together. If you can't get this off, what I suggest, either put it in a vise, be careful, you don't want to damage it, so clamp this thing down. Same when you want to tighten it, again, use a bit of cloth, or you can always put, it's not ideal, but you can put a wrench in it, basically like this, so it'll also stop it from moving. Ideally, none of these. So I'm just going to try to do it via manpower, see if I can loosen them myself. There we go. This one was the only time you actually needed elbow grease. Those nuts were hard. Anyway, threads were okay, nuts are okay, everything is clean. Let's assemble. There we go, 50 Newton meters. Now, gentlemen, this is an important part. You don't want anything to go wrong here. Nothing that should loosen itself. So, extra safety precaution, the dealer does it as well. You steal your daughter's nail polish and you just do this, just a little stripe. Has to be a light color though, so you can see it. And you do it in the front sprocket as well. Anywhere, whatever you tighten with your torque wrench. That way, if you have to loosen it in the future and put it back, you can sometimes line the stripes up and you know it's torqued correctly. Little tip on the side. Right, so everything is absolutely max and you're sitting one extra spare link. Question is, do we leave it like that? Because the chain is actually very tight this way. That's not ideal. It'll force it to stretch it even more. Now if we go standard size, pull the wheel back a little. Okay, that's pretty much taut. That's not bad. And you still have a little bit to go. And how much slack is there? Perfect slack, actually. May have to go a little bit further. This is a real conundrum. Do I cut a link out? You know what? I'm not going to cut a link out. I'm going to leave it like this. This is still a bit tight. It needs to go 4 centimeters upwards, as per that. So, okay. And it's at, there's more than enough room to adjust still. So, worst case scenario, new sprocket, new chain. And you know what?
I'm willing to take that risk. Let's put it together. Grease that thing like it's the first time you got your wife to allow you. And there we go. Riveted. I must say the riveting process is a bit more hair-raising than anything else. Thinking that you might crack the rivet or do something stupid so it doesn't even move anymore. And it's difficult to tell, especially with that tool. But it looks solid. Size-wise, 2.5 millimeters. Same as the rest of them. So, should work. Phew. That's what it's supposed to look like if your chain slider is 100%. You're supposed to see it, this little booby just peeking over, but no nip. And done. See, that didn't take so long. Only the length of a YouTube video. Right, difference between a 42 and a 45. Look, it's not world changing. It bunny hops a little bit more if you're aggressive on the start and stop, but that's about it. Handles just fine. Chain length, etc. also not a problem. Everything feels like it should. How long did it take me in reality? 5 hours. Yeah, I know. It's a little bit much, but this is because while we're in here, we clean out all the gunk. We service that thing. We scrape out all the old tar relics, etc. So major cleaning here was done, and that's why it took a bit longer. But it's not impossible. Ladies and gentlemen, the most difficult part was riveting that chain back together. Personally, I now know why those clip chains are so popular. They're a lot easier. Hope you found some interest in this video. If nothing else, no refunds.